If I was to describe myself, if no one had ever seen me, I would say outrageous, friendly, warm, likable, but really weird looking.
Dolly Parton is known around the world as America's sweetheart, the woman whose smile can melt hearts and whose songs can bring people to tears. She's built an image of grace, humility, and endless kindness. But what if that glittering reputation hides a history that's far more complicated than most people realize? What if behind the sequins and southern charm lies a trail of betrayal, lawsuits, and rivalries that nearly broke her spirit? For decades, Dolly has mastered the art of staying out of drama, or at least appearing to. But the truth is, not everyone she's worked with walked away a friend. Some tried to control her, others tried to take what was hers, and a few pushed her so far that even the queen of country music couldn't stay silent. They smiled together on camera. They praised her in interviews. Yet behind the scenes, there were slammed doors, harsh words, and business moves that cut deep. From mentors who turned into enemies to friends who became critics, Dolly Parton's story isn't just about fame and success. It's about standing her ground in an industry that didn't always respect her strength. In this video, we'll uncover the 5 singers Dolly Parton couldn't stand working with and the untold truth behind each of those broken relationships. Because once you find out what really happened behind closed doors, you'll never see Dolly Parton the same way again. Before the feuds, before the lawsuits, and before the world knew her name, Dolly Parton was just a small-town girl with a dream that felt impossible. She was born in a one-room cabin in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, one of 12 children raised by parents who had more love than money. Her father couldn't read or write, but he worked hard every day to keep food on the table. Her mother, despite raising a dozen kids, found time to sing, tell stories, and teach Dolly that faith and music could carry her through anything. That's where Dolly's fire was born, in the middle of struggle. While other kids dreamed of toys, Dolly dreamed of microphones. She learned early on that her voice was her ticket out, and by the time she was 10, she was already performing on local radio stations. At 18, she packed her bags, left home, and headed for Nashville with nothing but determination and a few songs she'd written herself. Success didn't come overnight, but when it did, it came fast. Her first hit, Dumb Blonde, wasn't just catchy. It was a statement. It told the world that she might look sweet, but she was no fool. People underestimated her, and that became a pattern she would face her entire career. Behind that big hair and soft smile was a woman who knew her worth long before the industry did. As her fame grew, so did the pressure. Everyone wanted a piece of Dolly, her time, her talent, and her brand. And while she kept her reputation spotless in public, behind the scenes, she learned the hard way that kindness doesn't protect you from manipulation. The same people who cheered for her success were often the first to question her decisions, her independence, or her control over her music. That's why when conflict came knocking, Dolly didn't go looking for it, but she never ran from it either. She learned that if you don't take control of your story, someone else will. And the first major test of that truth came from the man who helped launch her career and later tried to own it. Before Dolly Parton became a global icon, she was a young newcomer trying to find her place in Nashville. Her big break came in 1967 when she joined the Porter Wagoner Show. Porter was already a huge name in country music, known for his flashy suits, charm, and old-school showmanship. To millions of viewers, he was the star, and bringing Dolly onto his show seemed like a generous move, a mentor helping a rising talent. But behind the bright lights and hit songs, the partnership quickly became more complicated than anyone expected. At first, the chemistry was undeniable. Porter and Dolly sounded perfect together. Their duets climbed the charts, their performances won hearts, and fans couldn't get enough of their dynamic. But what people didn't see was the growing tension backstage. Porter wasn't just her duet partner, he also wanted to manage her career, make the business decisions, and control the direction of her music. To him, Dolly was part of his brand, someone he helped build, and someone he believed he had a right to manage. But Dolly had other plans. She wasn't content being the side act to anyone. She was a songwriter, a thinker, and a visionary who wanted to explore her own path. She began writing songs that didn't fit the Porter and Dolly mold, songs that spoke more to her truth than to the TV image they projected together. And when she realized she couldn't grow under his shadow, she made one of the hardest decisions of her career: to leave the show. The split devastated Porter. In public, he played it off as mutual, but behind closed doors, it became a battle. 5 years after she walked away, he sued her for $3 million, claiming she owed him for management fees and shared profits. For Dolly, it was a gut punch. Porter wasn't just a business partner, he was someone she'd considered family. But even through the betrayal, she refused to let the situation turn ugly. Instead of fighting him publicly, she quietly settled the case and moved on, choosing peace over pride. What most people don't realize is that "I Will Always Love You," one of the most famous songs ever written, was actually inspired by that breakup. It wasn't about romance. It was her way of saying goodbye to Porter, with love, but without regret. The lyrics were her closure, and the song became her escape. Years later, after decades of silence, Dolly did something that shocked everyone. She inducted Porter Wagoner into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2002. She stood on that stage and called him one of the biggest influences of her life. And when Porter passed away in 2007, she visited him in the hospital and held a private tribute concert in his honor. It was forgiveness in its purest form, not because he deserved it, but because she refused to carry bitterness. The whole experience taught her a valuable lesson that would shape every decision she made from then on. Never let gratitude blind you from protecting your freedom. But the next test would be even bigger, because soon, Dolly would have to stand up to a man even more powerful than Porter Wagoner, a man the world called the King. By the mid-1970s, Dolly Parton was no longer just a rising country star. She was a force. Her songs were topping charts, her voice was unmistakable, and her songwriting had earned respect from Nashville to Hollywood. But with fame came new kinds of tests, ones that didn't just challenge her talent, but her principles. And one of the biggest came from the man the entire world called the King of Rock and Roll. It all started with a song. In 1973, Dolly wrote "I Will Always Love You," the same song that had ended her partnership with Porter Wagoner. It was a deeply personal piece, one that came straight from her heart. The melody was soft, but the message was powerful, about love, respect, and walking away on your own terms. The song quickly became a hit, and word of it reached Elvis Presley. When Dolly heard that Elvis wanted to record it, she was stunned. Elvis wasn't just any artist. He was a cultural icon, someone whose covers could turn songs into history. For a young country singer, getting Elvis to sing your song was the kind of dream that could change your life forever. And at first, Dolly was thrilled. She said yes immediately, until she heard the conditions. Elvis's manager, the infamous Colonel Tom Parker, demanded that Elvis receive 50% of the publishing rights to the song before he could record it. That was standard for Parker's deals, but for Dolly, it crossed a line. Giving up half her song wasn't just giving up money. It meant losing ownership of something that came from her soul. It was a decision that could define her entire career. So, she did something almost no one had the courage to do at that time. She said no to Elvis Presley. Dolly later admitted that the choice broke her heart. She cried for days, not because she doubted herself, but because she genuinely loved and admired Elvis. She wanted to hear him sing her words, but she also knew that if she gave up that publishing, she'd be setting a dangerous precedent, one that said she could be bought, and time proved her right. Years later, Whitney Houston recorded her own version of "I Will Always Love You," turning it into one of the most iconic songs of all time. It sold millions of copies, won awards across the world, and made Dolly more money than any single song in her career. But more than the money, it validated her decision. Saying no to the King had protected her crown. Even years after the incident, Dolly spoke about it with grace. She never blamed Elvis himself, only the deal. She said she believed Elvis truly loved the song and wanted to sing it, but business got in the way. In her heart, she always kept respect for him. Still, it was another reminder that even in an industry built on smiles and handshakes, respect doesn't come from how sweet you are. It comes from how firmly you stand your ground. And standing her ground would become a pattern, because while some feuds were about control and business, others would get much uglier. The next one wasn't about money, it was about humiliation. Dolly Parton built her career on kindness. For decades, she stayed away from scandals and rarely let anyone see her angry. But in 2008, Howard Stern, the shock jock known for pushing boundaries, did something that finally crossed her line. During his radio show, Stern's team took clips from Dolly's audiobook, My Life and Other Unfinished Business, and spliced them together to make it sound like she was saying disgusting and offensive things. It was fake, completely made up, but they aired it anyway as a joke. When Dolly found out, she was heartbroken. She released a rare public statement saying, "I have never been so shocked, hurt, and humiliated in all my life. I cannot believe what Howard Stern has done to me." Fans were furious, and country radio stations rallied to her defense. But Stern didn't apologize. He brushed it off and kept moving, like nothing happened. Dolly could have dragged it into court, but instead, she took the high road. She went silent, focused on her work, and let time do the talking. 15 years later, in 2023, she shocked everyone when she appeared on The Howard Stern Show for the first time. This time, the roles were reversed. Stern called her a legend, praised her career, and treated her with the respect he should have given her years ago. Dolly never mentioned the past. She didn't need to. Her presence alone said it all. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and sometimes the best clapback is success. But not every feud came from the outside world. The next one came from inside the studio, from another powerful woman whose voice once blended perfectly with hers. In the late 1980s, Dolly Parton teamed up with two powerhouse singers, Linda Ronstadt and Emmylou Harris, to create what fans called the Dream Team of country music. Their voices blended beautifully, and when their album Trio dropped in 1987, it was an instant classic. It went platinum, won a Grammy, and proved that three women could dominate the charts together without needing any male headliner. But while the music was perfect, the process behind it wasn't. Dolly was fast. She liked to record in 1 or 2 takes and move on. Linda, on the other hand, was a perfectionist who could spend hours tweaking a single verse. Their different work styles quickly started to clash. What began as creative chemistry slowly turned into quiet frustration. Dolly later admitted that the recording sessions weren't as smooth as fans imagined. She said working with Linda could be tough, describing her as someone who liked to live in the studio. Linda wasn't shy about her feelings either. In interviews, she called Dolly unreliable and even said she would never work with her again, claiming Dolly would show up late or cancel sessions at the last minute. Those comments hit hard. For someone as professional and respected as Dolly, being called unreliable was rare, and it hurt. But true to her nature, she didn't fire back publicly. She let the music speak for itself. And in the end, that same album they struggled through became one of the most celebrated collaborations in country history. Years later, when they reunited for Trio 2, the tension was still there, but age had softened the edges. They finished the project, released the album, and quietly went their separate ways. There was no public drama, just the unspoken truth that sometimes even great harmony can't fix what's off behind the scenes. Dolly never badmouthed Linda. She respected her talent, but she also knew that not every partnership is meant to last forever. And by now, Dolly had learned that every feud, every clash, taught her something new about people, power, and patience. But just when she thought she'd seen it all, one more critic decided to take a shot at her legacy. Decades into her career, Dolly Parton had reached a level of respect few artists ever achieve. She was beyond controversy, loved across generations, and her songwriting was studied in music classes around the world. But even legends aren't immune to criticism. And in recent years, one artist decided to take a public shot at her craft. Jeff Tweedy, the frontman of the alternative country band Wilco. Tweedy has always been known for his blunt opinions, and during an interview, he made remarks that left fans stunned. While he praised Dolly for her influence, he called her songwriting too simple and said her lyrics lacked the depth found in other artists' work. Then he added the line that really lit up social media. "All I know is she wrote Jolene and I Will Always Love You on the same day, and I think she should have stopped after that." The comment spread fast. Fans were furious, calling it disrespectful and tone-deaf. How could someone question a woman who had written over 3,000 songs and built an entire empire from nothing? But Dolly, as always, stayed silent. She didn't respond, didn't throw shade, and didn't need to defend herself. Her music had already done that decades ago. Because here's the truth, Dolly's songs may sound simple, but that's what makes them timeless. Her lyrics connect with people who've never set foot in Nashville or even listened to country music. They speak to heartbreak, faith, and resilience in a way that's universal. And while critics debate complexity, Dolly continues to do what she's always done best: touch lives through honesty. In the end, the Jeff Tweedy moment didn't hurt her. It just reminded everyone that even after 60 years, she still inspires strong opinions. But that's what true icons do. They stir emotion, they spark conversation, and they stay relevant no matter who tries to bring them down. Dolly Parton didn't build her career on perfection. She built it on power, quiet, steady, and unshakable. And through every feud, every insult, and every challenge, she's never lost the thing that made her who she is: the grace to smile when others would have snapped. But what's most fascinating isn't who Dolly fought with, it's what those fights revealed about her. And that's what the conclusion ties together. Dolly Parton's story isn't just about fame, fortune, or even music. It's about control, the kind that few women in her era ever had. Every feud, every clash, and every moment of tension told the same story. She refused to be managed, manipulated, or disrespected. Whether it was a mentor who tried to own her career, a king who demanded her song, a radio host who mocked her voice, a peer who questioned her professionalism, or a critic who downplayed her art, Dolly stood her ground every single time. And she never did it through anger. She did it with patience, grace, and a quiet confidence that turned her into one of the most respected artists alive. Porter Wagoner taught her to protect her freedom. Elvis Presley taught her the value of ownership. Howard Stern reminded her that dignity speaks louder than revenge. Linda Ronstadt showed her that not every collaboration is meant to last. And Jeff Tweedy proved that even criticism can't touch a legacy built on heart. The world sees Dolly as gentle, and she is. But beneath that warmth is steel. She smiles, but she remembers. She forgives, but she never forgets. And she's proof that success doesn't come from being the loudest in the room. It comes from knowing when to walk away, when to speak up, and when to let time prove your point for you. So now the question is yours. Which moment do you think defined her the most? Was it walking away from Porter, turning down Elvis, standing tall against Stern, clashing with Linda, or ignoring the critics altogether? Let me know in the comments below. And if you love deep dives into the untold sides of music legends, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, because we've got more stories that'll make you see your favorite stars in a whole new light.